more leads for your construction business? Were you really busy over the past few years from referrals and word of mouth, but now things have slowed down? Maybe the phone's not ringing as much as it used to. You're concerned that the economy is slowing down. Maybe the competition is starting to get more of those referrals. And you're wondering, how do I generate more leads? How do I get the phone to ring? Well, that's what this episode is all about. You're listening to the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com, where it's all about systematizing your construction business to eliminate chaos and maximize profit, freedom, and impact. My name is Todd Dawalt, and my team and I have helped over 400 construction companies eliminate chaos, grow their profits, and grow their team. Today's episode is an interview with Logan Shinholser from the Contractor Growth Network. And this episode is for you, even if you don't think marketing will work for you, if you've tried it before and you're convinced it won't work for you, and if you have no idea where to start when it comes to generating leads. You're going to walk away with a few things that you need to do right now to start generating more leads. You'll learn what is a waste of time and money when it comes to marketing, and some of the most reliable ways that are working to generate leads for construction businesses right now. So, you may want to take notes for this. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Logan Shinholser. Enjoy. Logan, welcome to the Construction Leading Edge podcast.
Todd, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited for this. I've been listening for a while, so it's cool to be on.
Yeah, I was on your podcast recently and we chatted and this topic came up. So let's start with this. There's this group of builders and remodelers, specifically probably even trade contractors, commercial general contractors, who've been riding this wave of referrals and word of mouth for the last several years, maybe even since COVID. But now they're seeing leads slow down. The referrals aren't coming in, the phone's not ringing. They're a little concerned about the economy slowing down, and they're concerned. So let's talk about that a little bit. First of all, from your perspective, are you seeing this as well? Are you seeing construction business owners who are experiencing a decline in the inbound leads?
Overall, yes and no. So you really, from what we've seen, is there's really kind of two camps of people. And you're going to have the businesses that have been proactively doing the right things, even during COVID. You know, COVID was, everybody was getting stuff done. It was very much keeping up with the Joneses. So like, essentially, if you were a remodeler or a builder and you had a cell phone and a pulse, we're going to get work, because people were like going out of their way to say, look, I called you 3 weeks ago. I called you last week. You still haven't answered, but if you answer me this time, I'm going to hire you. So it went very much from super high demand, which caused a whole slew of other issues of, subs went right to homeowner, and that caused a bunch of production stuff. But basically, everybody who was doing the right things since that point in time, they are still the ones that things may have slowed down a little bit, but they're still getting steady leads coming through the door. So yes, it's going to be different from what it was in 2022, but even looking at like Google Trends and things like that, right now compared to the past couple springtimes, everything is up as far as people going to Google and searching for remodelers, contractors, things like that, which is a good sign because it shows that the market's starting to come back. I think everybody just got washed out where they had done all the work they wanted to get done around the house, so they took a little bit of a break. So you have that camp of people that were doing it from the beginning of COVID, all the right stuff, they're still getting the leads. Then you flip on the other side and you have the people that weren't really doing anything, and they were really just riding that referral train that, hey, we did one project in this neighborhood, they told their neighbor who told their neighbor, and we've done a handful of projects around there. And now that it's time to go back and try to market and try to generate work, either one, they don't really even have the resources, meaning the photos, the media, the website, any of that stuff to market. So now they're really starting from scratch. Or two, they kind of have it, but it's always been kind of a back seat. And that's kind of like that middle ground that a lot of people are in right now, where the best analogy I can give here is what's going on with like the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, where they've like made the playoffs every year for 10 years. And the team's not bad enough where they're going to fire everybody, but it's not good enough where they're going to win the Super Bowl. And there's a lot of people that are sitting right in that sweet spot where they have a website, but they don't really use it, or it doesn't really do much for them. And they have a Google profile and they have some photos of their work, but nobody really knows what to do with it to then leverage it to get more leads through the door. So overall, there is, compared to what it was a few years ago, there's definitely a slowdown. Compared to the past couple years, it's actually ticking back up a little bit, but there's a lot of people in that I've done some stuff, but it's not enough to really get the momentum going to generate work. And that's unfortunately like the worst spot to be in that a lot of people are currently in right now.
It's okay, but it's not desperate. So they're not actually taking much action. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much. The people that don't have a website or don't have, I don't know, have never done SEO in the past, they're coming up and saying, hey, I've never done this. I need to do this. And it's very much, top of mind that they need to do it. But for the people that have done it or currently have it, it's almost like the myth of like, well, I boosted a Facebook post one time and I got a bunch of likes, but I never got any work. So as a result, I just don't think that social media works for my company. And the reality is it does work. It's just the way that it was done that one time, because we've done it, just wasn't effective. And now we're just saying, because I tried it that one time, it didn't work. It can't ever work for me from here on out. In reality, it was maybe the right strategy, just poor execution, and that's why it didn't work. So we want to make sure that we're actually looking at what we're doing from a marketing perspective and recognizing, are we checking all the boxes saying we have a website, we have photos, we have this, and is it actually aligning with what our clients want, what our prospects are looking for, or is it simply we're checking the box and unfortunately we just don't know that it's missing the mark, and that's why everything has really slowed down.
You bring up a good point about websites. One thing I've seen and heard is people have a website, but the last time they updated it was 4 or 5 years ago maybe, and it doesn't really represent what they do. Maybe their website still it shows smaller bathroom and kitchen remodels, and they're doing whole house luxury remodels. So as a result, they're getting leads that they don't really want, and they just haven't taken the time to go through and tie everything together. So their ideal customer profile no longer is attracted to their website. So here's who we're talking to. We're talking to the people primarily who are sitting there thinking, I've never had to generate leads before. Work has always come to me. What do I do now? Right? So there are some misconceptions, myths that they believe that we want to talk about. We want to talk about how to think about marketing differently, and then give some advice on what to do and what not to do. So first of all, we may have touched on this a little bit. Let's talk about the wrong mindsets toward marketing that keep people stuck. So I had this conversation with one of our mastermind groups, and we spent 15 or 20 minutes talking about it. And some of the beliefs that came up were interesting, like it's kind of a point of pride that I don't have to market. It's something they're proud of, like a feather in their cap. Well, we don't have to market. People just come to us. It is something that's good. Others looked at it and said, well, I think the problem is I don't think I need to do it. I feel like it's optional. And every business that scales markets. They promote themselves. What do you run into? What are some of the biggest wrong beliefs that you hear from the people that you work with when it comes to marketing and lead generation?
The first one, especially, if you've been in business for a while, is there's this notion that marketing works. It just doesn't work for my company because of blank. One of my really good friends used to work for me for 3-4 years, and now he's actually working at a larger design build firm around the area. And we talk a lot about this because now that he's in the trenches, if you will, on the other side of the fence, we talk about the mindset stuff. And basically the idea is that, look, like we're not saying digital marketing and all this stuff doesn't work. It's just if you're going to spend, $200,000 on an addition or finishing out your basement or a remodel, you're not going to Google, you're going to your neighbor who's a lot like you up the road, and you're going to ask them who did their project, not go to the internet. So there's this idea that it's not necessarily that marketing doesn't work, it just doesn't work for me in my business. And it's almost like, in your world, somebody goes, look, I get that some industries like coaches and business coaches, they work really well, but remodeling is just too complicated. There's too many moving parts. It's too niche of an industry, too many nuances that if I hire a coach, they're going to understand maybe business and how remodeling works, but they're not going to understand how my business works. So that doesn't really align. So that's probably the number one misconception I would say when it comes to marketing is simply that we know it works, but we don't think it'll actually work for us. And ultimately the root of that is really, and this is what we do all day long, is when you walk through what actually works to bring business in the door for you, whether it's referrals or past customers, or you have like that one, vendor partner that brings you everything. The whole point is we want to understand the customer journey of your favorite client that you've ever worked with. So basically what ends up happening is we do a very in-depth call with somebody and we're like, who's your favorite client? And we walk through everything, and then ultimately all the amazing stuff that client, the contracting company, is saying that the prospect absolutely loved about that contracting company, and that's why they moved forward with them. And they got to see, for example, 3D renderings, and they said, wow, I cannot believe you do beautiful design. We definitely want to sign on the dotted line and go with you. When you look at what really takes a prospect to move forward, and then you look online, most of the time it's not there. It's as if you took the best pieces of your sales process and just hid them and said, hey, if you really want to see how great our company is, you have to hop on a sales call first with us, and then we'll dazzle you with all these things that we're going to do to transform your home. But ultimately, we're in this, trust building world where now, even with AI, like it's starting to come out that you're like, is that a real video or is that AI doing it? The more that we can just be very transparent and upfront with what our capabilities of, how it works, all that sort of stuff, the more that people are going to build that trust ahead of time, which is going to eventually turn into them becoming a lead. So a lot of people are just, unfortunately, all the amazing stuff that they're doing offline from a sales perspective, a customer service perspective, all of that stuff, they're just now and then going, well, online doesn't work. And it's like, well, yeah, what you're doing that's actually bringing in work is, offline is completely different than what I'm looking at online. Looks like chaos. I wouldn't hire you. You wouldn't hire you. That's why you don't send people to your website. So ultimately, that is like the biggest issue, is that people just do not replicate what's actually working offline, online. And that's why they don't believe that marketing is necessarily going to work for them.
You mentioned building trust. What are a couple of practical ways people can build trust with a lead, digitally speaking?
Number one thing that we all have to remember when it comes to remodeling and building, people are not initially hiring you for your experience, for your customer service, for the fact that you use Buildertrend or JobTread as your customer portal. They're hiring you because they hate the look of their current kitchen and they want somebody to come in and beautify that. That is probably the biggest thing that we have to educate a lot of our prospects on and say, look, the fact that you're a family-run business and you do all these above and beyond things, that's amazing. But ultimately, if I don't need to remodel my kitchen, I'm not going to hire you because I'm not looking for a customer service company. I'm looking for a remodeling company. So the number one thing that we can do to build this trust is to have high-end media, so both photos and hopefully eventually it'll get to this point where it's like imperative, but video. We want to actually show off the work that we're doing in a beautiful light. So if we think about the price tag of the projects that we're selling, we are essentially selling the same price as a very expensive car. But the difference is with a car, it's you walk into the store, you buy it, you walk out, and you got it. With a project, this is like somebody is essentially saying, hey, I'm going to spend a lot of money. I'm going to invite strangers into my home for 3 months, and I'm going to live without a kitchen or without my primary bathroom or whatever that is. So they're essentially putting themselves in an uncomfortable situation financially and from within their home. They need to feel so excited to move forward with this project before even considering it. So this is why referrals work so well, because in the referral world, typically I'm in Todd's house, we're having dinner, and I see like, Todd, this is an amazing kitchen. Like, what's up with this? And you're like, I just had this done. Like, and then now that I see that we just had this project done, I'm walking through, I'm touching the different material and going, wow, this is like, I've never seen a wood countertop. And you're like, oh yeah, it's butcher block. It's amazing. Like all that stuff. Unfortunately, unless we're in the space, we don't get to experience that. So having amazing photos, that is our way online to immerse the prospect into the project first and foremost. Because when you show somebody a project of yours, and this goes back to the people that say, I don't need a market, my work speaks for itself. That is exactly, that second part, my work speaks for itself, exactly what we want. Because what we want is for your work to be so good that we actually build a lot of the marketing around your work, because first and foremost, that is what people want. So we want to build, back to a website, project pages that walk through a full project. Show the before where we started. Show, hey, if you did design, what the step-by-step process was. And then, of course, show the after. Don't just show 1 or 2 photos. Look at like how Zillow sells a house or the MLS. They show a bunch of different angles of different rooms. We want the same thing. So we want to be able to show visually the process, not just like that cheesy before and after slider. We want people to feel like they're actually immersed and they're standing in that kitchen. And then once you start to tell more of the backstory of the clients and where they're located, the more that we can tell that story, the more that somebody feels like, wow, I'm also a young family with, a couple young kids and we're looking to expand. If I'm reading that online, I'm instantly going, well, if this is good enough for this person who I've never met, but they're very much like me, then maybe I should also consider this. And then I start to see the projects, and that's really how the excitement juices start to go in the consumer's mind. And that's what's really working online. So like when we build out these really in-depth feature project pages on clients' websites, that is behind the homepage. That is the number 2 most visited page on these websites. Because I remember when my wife and I first remodeled like our bathroom, the first thing she's doing on all these remodelers' websites is let me see their work. Not let me see, how long they've been in business, or let me, learn more about their process. The first thing is I want to see their work, because she wanted to see, could you actually do what she wanted in our home? And that's really how we build that trust first and foremost.
Hey, it's Todd here, and we'll get back to the episode in just a minute. But if you're like most builders and remodelers I talk to, maybe your business feels chaotic. You're working too many hours, you're not making as much money as you should, and it seems like every problem lands in your lap and too much depends on you. That sound familiar? You may be thinking what you need to do is drill a series of 1 inch or 1 1/4 inch diameter holes around the perimeter of your office, insert sticks of dynamite, and blow the whole thing up, and then start it. Well, here's the good news. You're probably just 2 or 3 simple adjustments away from a completely different business. This is what I've found. It's not about working harder. It's not about selling more jobs. You don't need to fire everybody. You don't need to do a complete overhaul. There are not 1,000 things you need to fix, and you don't need dynamites. You just need a few moves that give you maximum results with minimum effort. And that's what I want to help you with. I want to help you uncover those things on a free business evaluation call with our team. Here's what we're going to do on your business evaluation call. We'll uncover the hidden profit that's already in your business. We'll outline the 2 or 3 simple adjustments that are going to give you the most bang for your buck. We'll map out a simple plan so you can have more profit, more control, and ultimately have a business that runs without you. And if it makes sense, we'll talk about how we can work together to help you make that happen. Here's the deal. We only offer a few of these calls a week, and not everyone qualifies. So if you have a wave of work coming at you, or you're planning to grow, now is the time to make those adjustments. Click the link in the show notes right now to schedule your free business evaluation call. A lot of people would say a couple of things that we've touched on. One is, I just want to show my work. And if I could just talk to people, then I could sell them. I had a conversation with one of our clients at a live meetup in March, and we were sitting at this rooftop bar, and he told me, like, Todd, if I could just get in front of people, I could sell them. But that requires him getting in front of them. So how can somebody who's like that, charismatic, good on their feet, they can sell, convicted about what they're selling, high conviction, how can they convert some of that offline activity into online activity? You mentioned showing pictures and videos, things like that. What else can they do to start converting some of that offline trust building activity, the relationship building activity, from offline to online? Any suggestions there?
I mean, video is going to be the biggest thing for that. I mean, that's going to be your closest thing, with the exception of going to trade shows, and there's a big tour of homes that you could do where you're in front of people. But ultimately, your best bet is going to be video. I do know some remodelers that will run like webinars or seminars that talk about the remodel process, latest in design trends, things like that. But ultimately, if your goal is to create excitement, the idea of like, let me just get in front of you, that is going to be video, because this is the world that I come from. So my dad was a pond and water feature contractor, and he was really good at business, really good at talking to customers. And his whole thing when I first started doing all the marketing for him was, Logan, I just want you to make my phone ring with people that actually know what it looks like to work with us. And that was basically what we did. I didn't have all this marketing background. I didn't have a degree in marketing. I knew nothing. All I knew how to do was just, pull up my phone and shoot video. And it just, quote unquote, worked out that we just showed a lot of projects that we were working on. And he would just tell the story as we would just take videos and photos, and we started putting that online. And what ended up happening was, inadvertently, but now when I look back, I'm like, of course that makes sense. We started to have prospects not only find the videos and start to watch them, but they would also then, when the crew would show up on the job site, my dad would always do, because ponds is a little bit different than like the remodeling world or building world, where your average pond probably takes about a week and a half to build. So you're doing a much higher volume. It's a more consistent crew, but the crew would show up and we'd do the pre-job walkthrough. And I remember when we first started doing it, my dad would have to introduce every person on the team to the homeowner, and it was great. But then once we started doing videos, by year 2, people would cut them off and go, oh, that's Logan, that's Todd, that's Nick, that's Jeff. So they already knew the whole crew because they had been watching all the videos that were being put out. So if you have somebody who is very charismatic, very personable, YouTube is a big one. We do YouTube ourselves, go to these conferences, and I remember I was at the Job Trade one back in January, and I was talking to a remodeler, and he was like, Logan, I'm saying this in the nicest way. You're a really good sales guy. Not like a schemy way, but like I speak with conviction and passion. And you ask my wife what my favorite thing to talk about is, it is business and contractor marketing. Like that is what I'm known for around my house. So if you have somebody like that, video is going to be your best bet, where you get to highlight the passion and the love for what you do. And that energy, that transfers from the video into the viewer. And then by the time that they call you, they're like, oh, I was just watching your videos. And all that trust that they built up with the videos, as soon as they hear your voice, it transfers just like that. And now you're not starting from square one of, hey, I'm just doing my due diligence, I'm calling 3 different companies to come out and give a quote. They've already built that trust factor and that rapport with you, where you're almost like a mini celebrity in their mind. And that's really what the benefit of getting referrals is, because somebody else has already built that up in their mind. But now with video and stuff like that, now you're actually getting to do that yourself. And the beauty is it's way more scalable. You're not reliant on that past customer to just work their inner circle. You're now able to do it so anybody in your target market is able to see it. And then it just becomes a game of traffic. How are we getting people to watch these videos or look at these project pages or look at our photos? And that's where SEO, social ads, all that stuff comes in. So it's really, if you're a great salesperson and you just absolutely love what you do, video is going to be your best bet.
That probably scares some people because they don't like to be on camera. They don't know what to say. They probably change. But my advice would be they just want to get to know you personally. People work with other people that they know, like, and trust. The more you can get them to know you and like you and trust you, it doesn't have to be scripted content. They just need to get to know you. So in some cases, that can just be as simple as posting some things on social media about if you're a family person, if you're passionate about motorcycles, if you're passionate about whatever it is, just post, share about your life, and you'll actually connect with people on a real level. That's been my experience.
The caveat to that I'll say is, if we are trying to be seen as professional and higher end and it's a higher price point, recognizing that there's a difference between a personal brand and a business brand here, where in this world, if there's a remodeler and from their business page, they're posting all about their dogs and stuff like that, that's not why my wife is coming to your Instagram page to see, should we hire you? She's not like, oh, they're a dog lover, I'm in. She's like, I want to see your work. So you can infuse some of that into it if you'd like, but just make sure that the number one reason why people are coming to you is they want the end result. That is like 80% of what we are highlighting here, until we get big enough that you have a following for you and not just your projects. But that's like the biggest thing that we talk through with prospects is, look, like with your website, like people are not initially building trust and rapport with you personally. Again, they're not going to your About Us page. They're building trust and rapport and immersion through your projects. And once they feel like, wow, okay, this is great stuff, I definitely want to like learn more about next steps and who's going to be coming in my home, then we flip over into the more personal side and how long we've been in business, and it's a family run business and we're veteran owned and all that stuff. So on the personal side, like that's the personal brands, it's becoming more and more needed. It's no longer just the business. It's now, I read a whole book on personal branding, and they just compared like, Kim Kardashian's Instagram account versus Skims. And it's like 12-to-1 difference as far as Kim K has way more followers and people are buying from her, not Skims. But at this point, just recognize that as we're trying to build a business brand, we also want to make sure that we are not only posting on the personal side. The easiest things to post and build attraction towards are going to be your projects, which is why having beautiful photos that are taken correctly and they're done by somebody more on the interior design photography side versus real estate side, where they're just going to capture a wide angle of the kitchen compared to the close-ups, which is the craftsmanship and showing how the cabinet, how they all like all that stuff, super important. So we want personality into it, but make sure that especially when we're doing this on the business side, we're infusing personality into the end result, which is really why they're there, and that's the transformation of their space.
If you have really weird interests, keep that stuff to yourself. If you have strong political opinions or strange hobbies and interests, just keep that stuff to yourself. You may want to check with somebody like, hey, should I share this? And a friend would tell you, no, you should not share that publicly. So let's just spend a couple of minutes talking about something that I think is important to marketing. We touched on it. Some people say, well, I tried that. I tried that once and it didn't work. How important is experimentation and iteration to marketing?
It's everything. And at the same time, I think the idea of experimentation is it just has like the wrong connotation. I think what people expect when it comes to experimentation is, if we want to generate a bunch more leads, what we're going to do is we're going to change all the button colors on your website from red to blue. And that's what we're going to track. And in reality, yes, that is important. But for most people listening to this, we're not in such a high volume game where if you're Amazon, the button colors do matter a lot, because even if something drops down by, 0.1% difference, to you, that's $1,000 a year. To Amazon, that's a lot of money. I mean, that's like, $1 billion to them. So ultimately, when it comes to the idea of experimentation and tracking, like to give you a great example, we built a website for a remodeling company last year, and We are chatting with them. It's been about 6 months. And we're like, hey, how's it all going? And basically, the referrals that they're getting about 3 referral leads a month. And they say that those are good leads. And now when it comes to the website, they're getting about 10, I think it was 10 to 15 leads a month. And he said that those were a little bit above okay. So referrals are good, and a little bit above okay is coming from the website. So then what we do is we're about to sit back down with them and go, great, well, let's talk about what are the referrals coming to you knowing that makes the website people not as good of a lead. And that is maybe all the referrals know what pricing is already, or maybe they spend a lot of time really in somebody's space, which then what that means for us is now that we've had some time where people have gone through the website, we're also able to look at some of like the analytics of like user behavior on the website. We then want to go back and maybe make some adjustments to say, look, maybe we should make pricing on the website a little bit more front and center, because now you're saying that great referrals already know pricing. Let's try that. And maybe at first it's not necessarily saying this is the exact price to the dollar, but giving a range, saying this basement, a basement like this could be 80 to 120 instead of saying it's 100,014 cents. Same thing with understanding the user path on the website of right now, it's really focused on give us a call or like learn more about our services. Maybe we want to flip that over to, hey, if we know that everybody who's a great referral coming in has already seen our work, let's just get them right over to our gallery to show them off more of our work. There's a lot of testing that we want to do. I think a lot of people just assume that it's a very quick test of change this color to this color, or make these verbiage changes, like add the Oxford comma and let's see if that attracts a more, professor level clientele. But in reality, it's the big swings that we want to understand. So less about button colors and more about Google Business Profile. Like, to give you an example, we have a client, they're listed as construction company. And we said, hey, based off of everything that we're going after, we think general contractors are better fit for you. We switched it from construction company over to general contractor on their profile. And overall, their engagement goes up, but their leads go down. And so what do? We change it back to construction company. And then eventually we'll say, great, now that we're back to steady state, maybe let's try remodeler to see if that's actually more in line, because you are design, build, remodeling. Remodeling does seem better, but let's try that, test it, and then maybe go back if it doesn't work out that time. So it's a lot of just like changes like that, and it's not an immediate make a change, take 5 seconds to see if it works or not, and then determine from there. It's a lot of just as time goes on, your ideal client's going to change, so maybe the way that they buy also changes. So we need to account for that. So it's like a long experiment and long testing cycles compared to obviously the Google Business Profile one where we get a lot of leads and then it stops and then it goes back to a lot. That would be a fast change. But for the most part, we don't want to tinker around with this stuff just to see if we can get a 0.1% increase in conversion rate, because in most everybody's listening worlds, it's going to cost more than $1,000 to do that testing to then make $1,000.
You will get it right eventually, but it's not going to be a home run right off the bat. And I think so many times we're looking for that silver bullet. And if it doesn't work immediately, we just jettison the idea and try something else. But what I found is when you're constantly trying new ideas, you just bounce from one thing to the other and you never really give something a chance. And it takes some testing. So what are the most reliable ways you're seeing custom home builders and remodelers generate quality leads right now? What's working?
Biggest thing is, and nobody's going to want to hear this answer because I think they're all expecting me to say this type of Google ad is the best, but ultimately it is content specific to your ideal client. So understanding first exactly who we're going after, what are their pain points, where are they located, were there specific things that you did in the sales process that got them to convert, and then on top of that, understanding what makes you unique and special and different to actually fulfill on the problems that client is having. So that first piece of just understanding who are we going after and how do we actually do it that makes them want to engage with us is like step one. Then from there, the next piece is really going to be beautiful media, a website built around it, and your Google Business Profile. Then it goes into SEO, social ads, and all that stuff. But basically, once you hammer out, let's go through, we know who we're going after, what makes us special, because ultimately, if if your sweet spot is $500,000 additions and you identify your ideal client as somebody who makes, 40 grand a year, it's probably not going to align. We're not going to have that product market fit. So we need to make an adjustment. Either it's the clientele we need to switch or it's the product offering that we need to switch, but know who we're going after, what we need to do for them. Then make sure we have the right visuals. So that's the right branding, the right media, the right videos. And then lastly, it's going to be build the website around it and make sure that we're getting traffic to it. And the best thing right now is it's really that Google business profile, because there's a lot of control in the builder and the remodeler's hands that, yes, it takes time to build it out and keep it going and stuff like that. But ultimately, they have spent a lot of money to make that easy or easier for the actual, contracting company to do it themselves. And typically, Google does not spend a lot of money to do something unless they are saying, hey, we're kind of telling you this is very important. So that is like first and foremost. Anybody that we talk to, we say, let's get the media right, let's get the website right, and let's get the Google business profile right, because those are all things that are like step one for what we're looking for.
A lot of people in a situation, they don't have enough leads. They often look to buy leads, and they look to these services that sell them leads. What do you think about, what are the pros and cons of buying leads like that?
So the pros are, you're going to get a lot of at-bats. This was like the last thing that my dad tried before he hired me to do it. He got 60 leads and he sold one out of those 60. I think he added up the amount of time it was taking him to go through these leads, and he was like, this is just ridiculous. So you will get a lot of at-bats. You will get a lot of chances. Ultimately, the biggest issue is it's very hard with, like, these lead services work. They just don't work as well for the longer sales cycle industry. Most everybody listening to this is on that longer sales cycle industry, meaning there's not many people that wake up and go, oh my gosh, I got to hire a kitchen remodeler right now to do an emergency kitchen remodel project. They work really well for more people that, one, you have a full sales team that it's speed to lead is everything. So it works really well for roofing, windows, siding, stuff like that. It's more of who can get out there first, because it's more of a transactional sale. So those platforms are great for that. Now, as far as on the remodeling side, smaller projects, again, more transactional, those work pretty well. But once you start to get into more custom projects, more design build, things where you're going to be spending a lot of time with people. This is even true with like the Google business profile, where if you're going to hire somebody and drop a lot of money on it and they're going to be in your house for a while, we're not just looking at like, oh, they've got a 4.9 star average, I'm going to call them and have them out for an estimate. Like, you're going to look through their work and their websites, and you're going to like start to look through Instagram to see, does this align and stuff like that. So the third-party lead gen service platforms are even more transactional, because they essentially put you against everybody. And then at that point, it's really just a numbers game, a volume game. So if somebody, kind of going back to your original question, that says, I just need to get in front of people, I can sell to anybody, I'm like, great, sign up for one of those platforms. And if that works, then start there, because you will get work assuming what you're saying is true. 9 times out of 10, they go, oh, those are crap leads. I can sell anybody as long as it's like a referral. I'm like, oh, so it's not really selling. It's really more of like, you just showed up. Like, you just didn't mess it up, but the sale was already done for you. So ultimately, if you're really good at sales and you want to play the numbers game and you don't have anything coming in right now, those are a good place to start, because they have built an entire brand around, hey, we're going to connect the homeowner with the actual contracting company. But I will say, ultimately, Google doesn't like those as much. They would rather show your own company website. If somebody says like, I'm looking for remodelers in my area, they would rather show the actual remodelers versus a third-party lead gen source, because they like brands. But if you're not giving them enough strength in your brand, they're going to show those companies. So basically, it's going to put everybody in the same playing field, and it's simply just a race to the bottom. It can work. It works in certain industries, but you got to really be set up for those platforms to make it work, from my experience.
Yeah. Yep, I would agree. So, which marketing tactics are just a waste of time and money? Where do you see people wasting the most time and money?
Typically what ends up happening is it's not necessarily that it's a waste of time or money, is people go in the wrong order. So for example, Todd, if you're going to hire somebody to remodel your kitchen, do you have in your head, you go to Google, like a certain star average, do you have something in your mind that they have to be above a certain rating for you to at least entertain working with them? If you do, assuming you do, what we don't want to do is say, you know what, instead of fixing our rating problem, which ultimately is going to impact the conversion, let's spend a bunch of money on golf course cards. The golf course scorecards, they can work for a branding play, but unfortunately people just go out of order where they want to put up magazine ads and billboards and radio jingles, but they don't have a website and a Google business profile and all the things that are meant to attract people that are ready to go right now. So it's more so that we're just going out of order instead of not recognizing hey, if we put an ad in a magazine, is this like an infomercial where we're supposed to put out an ad and then everybody calls in the next 10 minutes because we can't be selling kitchens all day and that's what's going to generate work? Or is the magazine stuff, it's really branding. So as long as we have our, ducks in a row where we already have the, all the things with Google and referral partners and all the things that really are if somebody's looking for, a project or a service that you do, it can find you. Once we get that, then we want to go more upper funnel, which is like that whole marketing funnel thing. So basically, I wouldn't say there's any marketing that's a waste of time. The biggest waste of time and money is really just when we go out of order and we're not really hiring, or it's not hiring, we're not really putting money into the correct marketing activity at the right place and the right time for the business or for the clientele or whatever that is. It's the same thing with building a business. You're, step one, you probably need to get an admin. That's going to be helpful. If it's just you running the business, I don't think the first thing that you're going to do is try to hire a CEO to replace yourself. That's way down the line. Not saying that hiring a CEO is a bad investment. It's just not investment on day 2 of starting a business.
Hey, it's Todd. We'll get back to the episode in just a minute. If you are thinking about growing your construction business, maybe you've been wondering things like, how do I know if my business can handle more work without falling apart? Is now the right time to grow, or should we just stay where we're at? Am I missing something that could blow up if I scale too fast? Do I have the right structure in place to support growth and to be able to grow safely? Maybe you're worried about burning out your team or burning out yourself. You're worried about winning more work, but then losing control of the quality and having that hurt your reputation. Maybe you're concerned about getting stuck in more chaos, having more problems instead of having more freedom, or finding out too late that your systems just weren't strong enough to handle the growth. Well, here's what's surprising. A company studied why successful contractors fail, and they found out 2 things. Number 1, contractors don't starve to death. They get too much work too fast with inadequate resources, and then they run out of cash. The second thing that they learned after studying a couple of hundred successful contractors that failed is that contractors are actually more likely to go bankrupt during a growing economy than during a downturn. So how do you know if your business is ready to scale? How do you know when it's time to hire more team members, to go after another market, to sell more work? Well, that's a big question that a lot of people are grappling with. It's a question I get a lot. So that's why I created an assessment tool to help you answer the question, is your construction business ready to scale? This assessment is free, it's online, and you'll get a customized report showing exactly where your business is strong and where the hidden gaps are that could trip you up. It's the fastest way to get clarity before you put your business and your future at risk. So if you want to take the free assessment to find out, is your construction business ready to scale? The link is in the show notes. People look for that silver bullet. They look for the quick hit. Where can I just write a check and make something happen without having to do a lot of work? Because frankly, updating your website, getting clear on your ideal customer profile and their pain points and what they want, that stuff takes some time and takes some mental energy, and it's hard. But that's really where you have to start. Resist the urge to chase the shiny object and just write a check and throw money at something that's quick. You really have to do the work and get your home base built out, your website, make sure you have a sales process. So while we're talking about this, what are some of those things that need to be done before somebody hires a website designer, before they start to market? Like, what are some foundational things that need to be figured out that make your job easier when you work with a client?
So ultimately, what this is kind of like, people saying like, hey, I need to lose some weight before I join a gym. But the whole point of joining a gym is to lose the weight. In our world, when somebody comes to us and they go, look, I need a new website or a this or a that, media is always going to be a big part of it, is identifying, okay, you say you really want to specialize in kitchens, baths, and basements. Let's actually look at proof. Can you actually prove that you have done these projects? And a lot of times people will have iPhone photos and it's like a good start, but you don't really know what level the media should be at until a lot of times the website's kind of built out. Then you're like, because this happens more than I wish it did, where clients go, look, I don't have any good photos. I'm telling you, the ones I sent you over, we just have to use those. And I'm like, all right, we'll use them. And then we show them the website once it's done. And they go, oh, you know what? Now that I see it, I actually have a whole Dropbox folder of all these professionally shot photos that would be way better. And we're like, okay, there it is. So that is the, like, I'm a stickler, and like my team is a stickler for making it, what I say is like, I'm like, oh, it's going to be way easier on our developers if you can have nice photos. When they're professionally shot, they're usually going to be a much higher quality because like the camera quality, which means you can expand them. Like you make them much larger and they don't pixelate and they don't have bad lighting. And it's what magazines do. Like Restoration Hardware is not just putting out a magazine that just has a small, gallery on each page where like the photos are, the size of a quarter or like an inch by an inch. They're big and they're bold and they're bright and they're beautiful. And that's what we want on these websites. So the biggest thing that you can do is first identify, who your favorite client is. It's a whole exercise that we do with everybody we talk to, because like we want to know, is what you're describing realistic? Are you trying to sell to Jay-Z and Beyonce, but your whole portfolio is tiny hallway bathrooms in Milwaukee? No offense to Milwaukee people, but making sure that we're actually aligned with who we want to go after and who we are as a company and identity. And then from there, as a website person, prioritize professionally shot photos of work, because essentially a great website with bad photos is going to, for the most part, there's nuances here, lose to a bad website with immaculate photos. Because people can go, well, the website's terrible, but ultimately I see the work product that they do and that I'm hiring them for that reason. But if it's a great website with photos that it looks like you just breathed all over your phone before you took them and they're sideways and they're not staged photos and things like that, then it starts to become like, man, maybe they just spent a lot of money on a website. So we spend a lot of time with people and clients saying, look, like you really want to do higher end stuff. I know that you think 50 grand for a kitchen's on the lower end, but this is still the price of a Kia. And look at Kia's we pull up Kia's website and I'm like, Kia didn't just take a photo with their iPhone. Look at how they took the photo. And it's like on the side of a, driving down like, Pacific Coast Highway and it's beautiful and all that stuff. And I'm like, Kia still recognizes that this is aspirational for people. Like that's basically what we want to do. So the whole point here is really the website is the resume for the business. And if you think about what goes onto a resume, I can build out a really nice resume for you. It's formatted correctly. It hits on all the points. But ultimately, if you're trying to get a really high-paying sales job and you have no sales experience, or you can't point to the fact that you hit this quota X amount of months and things like that, it's the same thing. So you want to make sure that you have the experience, you have the projects to really align with what your clientele wants, and then you're able to show it off in a beautiful way. And then that's when marketing comes in and says, great, we're going to take what you do and elevate it, but ultimately, I can't get you a high-paying sales job if you've never had sales experience before, simply by trying to, build out a beautiful resume and get it into the hands of all these hiring managers, because they're all going to look at it and go, nah, this is just not who I'm looking for, and toss it in the trash.
Tell us a little bit about your business Logan, what kind of people do you work with? What problems do you help them solve? And where can people go if they want to learn more?
This whole thing started with back, my dad's thing at this point 10, 11 years ago. And it's all just, showing what it looks like to actually work with you, taking all the amazing things that you do offline and you put it online. I know what it's like when you hop off a sales call with somebody and you go, I should have just said this. If I would have just told them that I'm, certified in this one thing, that would have made them say, you know what, I'm in. So basically what we do is we take all the great stuff that you're doing, identify what that looks like, and then we build out an online presence for you. So that starts off with doing a full strategy around it, looking at the branding, looking at your media, looking at, what the website currently looks like. Is it appealing to the ideal client? Is it not? Is it generic? Is it not? All that sort of stuff. And then we actually do the execution around it. So that comes down to branding, that comes down to website, SEO, and then video and video marketing. That's our sweet spot, but there's a whole process that goes through it of making sure we know what the marketing message should be. So at the heart of it, it's strategy, it's branding, it's website, it's SEO, and it's video marketing, but it goes step by step to make sure that each step in the process, we are really, kind of back to your original thing, taking your projects, building out essentially mini campaigns around it, because ultimately what we want is when somebody finds your website, we want them to see the work. We want them to read the stories of your clients. We want them to see the testimonials that they're reading, because that is going to be your best shot to get that person to convert into a lead, not stuffing your website with a ton of words to try to appease the Google gods. That's what it is. So that's what we do at Contractor Growth Network. Our website is just contractorgrowthnetwork.com. That's the easiest place to look at us. But ultimately, step one of anything we do is we do a very in-depth sales call. It is the favorite call for most people that we talk to, because it is essentially taking your business and putting it down on paper. Like, to give you an example, I had a client, remodeler, or a prospect, remodeler. They end up going with somebody else, but it's going to be of HubSpot. I saw the other day that intake form that we completed together. They went back through the email and downloaded it, because that intake form is essentially your entire business, what you stand for, your ideal client, all that stuff. That is what you need to hand over to your marketing company for them to get the full picture of, oh, now I get what this company does, what makes them special, what makes them unique, because you want your marketing to be built out around what is working for you, not necessarily what that company is telling you. Well, Google likes this. Don't worry about showing off your photos. Google wants more words. Go with what you know, because ultimately it doesn't matter how number one in Google you are. If nobody's going to then convert into a lead, what's the point?
So Contractor Growth Network, you have a podcast as well. So we'll have those links in the show notes. Logan, thanks for taking the time to be on here, man. This was super helpful.
Todd, I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much.
Hey, it's Todd here. Before you go, remember this. If your business feels stuck or chaotic, chances are you're only 2 or 3 simple adjustments away from unlocking more profit, finally getting your life back, and having a business that runs without you. We want to help you identify those adjustments on a free business evaluation call with my team. Click the link in the show notes to book your free call. Remember, calls are limited. Not everybody qualifies. So go book your call, and I'll see you next time.